There is a moment. That happens right before someone manipulates you. A tiny window. A fraction of a second. Where something inside you already knows. That's what is being said. Does not feel right. Most people miss that window completely. They override it. They talk themselves out of it. They say I am probably overreacting. And by the time they realize what actually happened, the manipulator has already won. The ancient Stoics faced manipulators. Far more dangerous than anyone you will ever meet. Emperors who lied to their faces. Advisors who smiled while planning betrayal. And they built something almost nobody teaches today. A mental defense system. Here are 5 Stoic rules that will make you nearly impossible to manipulate ever again.
Welcome to True Stoic Journal, the path to inner control.
The first rule is this. Separate the words from the intention. Manipulators are skilled at one very specific thing. Making their intention sound like something else entirely. Guilt sounds like love. Control sounds like concern. Punishment sounds like disappointment. Epictetus taught something that cuts directly through this disguise. It is not the events themselves that disturbs people, it is their judgment about those events. A manipulator understands this instinctively. Even without ever reading philosophy. They know that if they frame their control as care, your judgment will soften. Your guard will drop. So the first Stoic rule is to stop listening only to what someone says and start watching closely what their words are actually designed to do. Ask yourself one simple question. Every single time something feels slightly off, what outcome does this person want from what they just said to me? If the honest answer is, they want me to feel guilty enough to comply, then you are not looking at love. You are looking at leverage. This single shift in attention, from content to intention, is one of the fastest ways to see manipulation clearly, often before it has even fully landed. The second rule is this. Guard the gate of your mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that manipulators desperately hope you will never fully understand. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. A manipulator's entire method depends on one thing: convincing you that their words automatically become your reality. They tell you that you are too sensitive, and you begin doubting your own feelings. They tell you that you are ungrateful, and you begin questioning your own perfectly reasonable boundaries. But here is what the Stoics understood that most people never learn. An impression arrives first, raw and unfiltered. Someone's words hit you. But that impression is not yet a belief. There is a pause available. A gate. Where you get to decide whether that impression is actually true. Before you let it rearrange your entire sense of reality. Manipulators rely on speed. They want you reacting instantly. Emotionally. Without that pause. So the second Stoic rule is to slow everything down. On purpose. When something someone says makes you suddenly doubt yourself, stop. Ask, is this actually true? Or am I simply being told it is true by someone who benefits? If I believe it, that pause is the gate. Guard it carefully. The third rule is this. Refuse to argue with distortion. One of the most exhausting tools a manipulator uses is shifting the entire conversation away from the original issue. You bring up something specific. They respond with 5 unrelated grievances. Suddenly, you are defending your entire character, instead of discussing the one simple thing you originally raised. This tactic works because most people feel obligated to respond to every single accusation thrown at them. The Stoics teach something completely different here. Not every claim deserves your energy. Epictetus said, "You always own the option of having no opinion. There is never any real need to trouble your soul over things that were never actually true. To begin with, you do not have to defend yourself against every distortion someone throws in your direction. You are allowed to simply say, 'That is not what we were discussing,' and refuse to be pulled into 10 different arguments designed purely to exhaust you into surrender. A manipulator wants you tired. A tired mind agrees to almost anything just to make the noise stop. So the third Stoic rule is refusing to chase every distortion they throw at you. Stay anchored to the single original point. Let them exhaust themselves arguing with a person who refuses to be moved. The fourth rule is this: detach your peace from their approval. This is perhaps the deepest weapon a manipulator has. They understand, often instinctively, that if they can make your peace depend on their approval, they control you completely, without ever needing to raise their voice. Silent treatment, sudden coldness, withdrawn affection. All of it works because somewhere inside you, a part of your calm has become tied to their reaction. Seneca wrote something that manipulators genuinely fear, whether they consciously realize it or not. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more. That is poor. A person who does not crave someone else's approval cannot be controlled through the withholding of it. This does not mean becoming cold or indifferent to people. It means building an internal source of peace that does not collapse the moment someone frowns at you, or goes silent, or withdraws their warmth as punishment. The fourth Stoic rule is building that internal anchor deliberately, so that your emotional state is no longer a lever someone else can pull whenever they want something from you. The fifth and final rule is this: walk away without needing them to understand why. This is the rule most people struggle with the most. They believe that before they can leave a manipulative situation, the manipulator must first understand, must first agree, must first admit what they actually did. That moment rarely arrives, and waiting for it keeps good people trapped for years, sometimes for entire decades. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "That wastes no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one." Notice he did not say, "Convince everyone else of your goodness first." He said, "Be one, and act accordingly, regardless of whether the people around you ever fully understand your reasoning." You do not need a manipulator's permission to protect yourself. You do not need their understanding to finally walk away. Closure is a beautiful idea. That manipulators are often incapable of ever genuinely providing, because providing it would require them to admit exactly what they had been doing. So the fifth Stoic rule is releasing the need for their understanding entirely. You can leave without an explanation being offered back to you. You can protect your peace without their approval of that decision. Now, here is what happens when you actually begin living by these 5 rules consistently. Manipulators start losing interest in you almost immediately. Not because you became cruel. Not because you became distant for the sake of distance, but because manipulation requires a very specific kind of predictable reaction from you. Guilt, doubt, fear, the desperate need for their approval. The moment those reactions stop arriving on schedule, the entire strategy becomes useless to them. They will often test you again, pushing harder to see if the old patterns still work. Stay steady. Epictetus endured actual physical chains and still refused to let anyone control the one thing that mattered most: his own mind. You are not facing anything close to what he endured, but the principle remains the same. They can control many things in this world: your calendar, your money, sometimes even your body. But they cannot control your judgment unless you hand it to them willingly. Guard the gate. Slow the reaction. Refuse the distortion. Detach your peace. Walk away without needing permission. 5 rules built by people who faced manipulation at the highest levels of power and still walked away with their minds completely intact. If this reached something inside you today, share it with someone who is currently being manipulated and does not fully see it yet. Like this video, because this kind of clarity deserves to reach the people who need it most. And subscribe to True Stoic Journal, because what comes next goes even deeper into building a mind that cannot be controlled, and it will be waiting in your feed very soon. Remember this: a manipulator's entire power exists only in the space you leave open for them. Close that space, and you become someone they simply cannot use anymore. That is not coldness. That is mastery.